So I wanted a way that I could get the lights up onto the ridge of my house easily without having to put any staples through the shingles and keep my lights lined up in a nice straight line like you can see there. And so I came up with this project to do that. What you're looking there is the finished result of that project. And once I was done, the modular system allowed me to set up the lights on the roof in under 10 minutes. Basically just laying them out and connecting the ends one to another without having to hassle with lining everything up. Testing after cutting the lights into 10-foot segments using waterproof connectors. Gathering up the materials in order to put together the project. Need the wood. Need a stapler and some hinges. Need my drill, a square, and for convenience a screw gun to work with the drill so I don't have to change bits. Alright, now first thing we're going to do is we're going to measure and cut the strips of the pieces of wood to length, and I am cutting them off at just under 5 feet, so 58.5 inches. By doing this, each strip basically will cover 10 feet. There will be a little bit of a gap between them, and part of that's because one of the ridges that I need to cover is 29 feet long, and so if they're just a little bit short, then I can make them all that same length, and I'll be able to cover that ridge as well as the one. Length of 58.5 inches. Once all the boards are marked, we come back with the square and put a line all the way across in order to make it easier to cut. Now, I could eyeball it, but for the purposes here, I went ahead and marked them all. Now that I've got them all marked, I'm stacking them, preparing to cut them, and going to use a skill saw in order to do that. So line up the guide with my line, and then move forward and watch it along the line and cut it off there. So just like that. A little different angle here for you. Alright, now that I've cut them all to length, I'm going to grab two of them, and what we're going to do is we're going to be putting together two sections of 5 feet each in order to make a 10-foot section. And we're going to join them in together in the middle using a hinge. And I flipped that one around because one end of that board was thinner than the other end, and it didn't mate well in the middle, so I wanted to get the best fit there in the middle that I could. So I've grabbed my hinge, and I'm going to line my hinge up here. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mark the length of the hinge on the boards. So center the hinge and then mark the ends of that hinge. And now that I've got the edge of the hinge marked, I can measure in from the edge in order to find my center point, and we'll do that measurement in 2 times on each board, so 1 from each side because we're doing 2 different hinges. So measuring in 1 inch. My pencil was dull, so I went and grabbed a knife to sharpen it, and just about got that done. Just like I used a pencil sharpener. Now I got a good line. So make each of those measurements. Alright, now we want to center the hinge on a split between the boards, and then we want to line up our line that we just drew, the center point line, in the center of that eye. And then I'm going to use a center tap screw drill bit, to drill a pilot hole for my screw right in the very center of that hinge hole. And we're going to do the same thing on the other end. And I got a little bit lucky on this one because what I want to do is I want to keep that hole I just drilled should be centered there, but I let it slip a little bit. But it's close enough that it worked out. So again, line that hinge up on the center. Use the center self-centering drill bit, and now we've got almost all of our pilot holes drilled. Go ahead and put the screws in. Screw those screws down. Now that I got it that much done, I'm going to check the alignment here and make sure that my boards are at least somewhat aligned, and actually this set came out really well. And there's a little bit of play in it, but they're aligned. Getting it lined up with that center hole, or that center line, is what the key is to getting that to work out. Alright, now that we got the centers done, we can do the 8 holes in the middle. Go ahead and just hit that with that self-centering drill bit to create pilot holes, and then put each of the screws in and be done. Now you don't have to work the screws in a pattern like this. I was trying to do something funky for the video, and it just didn't quite work out here. You'll notice that screw right there is magnetic, which means that it is not a stainless steel screw. These were zinc oxide, which has some resistance properties, but not quite as much as if it were stainless. If it were stainless, then that magnetic tip would not be hooking onto them. And as I did some that were stainless and some that were not, I'll tell you the ones that were stainless were quite a bit more difficult to work with because the screws just didn't want to behave for the drill bit. Kind of had to get them to sit in there. That pilot hole was kind of key for that in those situations. My preference would have been that all of them were stainless steel, except that Home Depot did not have enough of the stainless steel ones, so I had to get some that were zinc oxide and some that were stainless steel. This one here is a zinc oxide one. So I'm hoping the zinc oxide ones hold up and don't get all rusty on me, but if they do down the road, then I may have to swap them out. Let's go ahead and just finish getting those screws in. And we're done. So now I'm going to do the next board. Again, doing the same thing. Measuring in, putting my center line on each of the four sides. Putting my hinge down, laying it over that center line, and using the self-centering bit to create a pilot hole. Create a pilot hole on both ends, put the screws in. Fasten the screws down, double check the alignment of the board. Once the alignment's good, go ahead and put the other 8 screws in. Now there's not much you're going to be able to do. If the alignment isn't good, you'll have to really move your hinge over to the side a bit. So now, in order to get it to rest up on the ridge, I got these pieces of angle that I'm going to attach to the board. However, because my roof is not 1212, I do not have a 90-degree peak. So I'm going to flatten out the angle a bit on these in order to meet the angle of my roof, which is 612. So probably not getting it all the way to the exact angle, but getting it close enough here. Here's a little better angle for you, kind of see what's going on here. On each pair of boards, I'm going to use 3 of them. One in the center, like I'm doing here, and then 2 on each end. So I'm going to do basically the same procedure. I'm going to line it up at the edge of the board, and then use that self-centering drill bit. I'm going to put a screw into it, and set that screw. Now that screw is set, I'm going to use my straight edge, my right angle straight edge, to make sure that I've got it right angle on the board. It's not critical, but it's nice to not be sloppy. So once that's done, again, I use a centering drill bit and put a pilot hole in, and then put the screw in for that. So now that I've got one done there, I got to do one on each end. Now when you're doing the one on each end, you got to make sure that they do not overlap, so one will be closer to the end and one a little bit further away from the end, so that when you fold it in half, you don't have them running into each other. Again, same process. Self-centering drill bit, put the screw in, use a straight edge to line it up, get it at a 90-degree angle, and use the self-centering drill bit to put a pilot, put the screw in. Now you don't have to use the self-centering drill bit. It does make it a little bit easier. It's not critical to the function, although what happens is the wood will at times shift your drill bit just a little bit when you're drilling without it. So this is a little better angle here for you. Showing the process again. I love my DeWalt drill set there. Gets the job done really easily. It's great having 2 of them.
So happy that I got that set that has two of them in it, and each of them does works a little bit differently, but together they having two drills set up to do a job makes that go real quickly. So now that I've got those angles on there, I can go ahead and now it's time to attach the lights to the board. And so I'm going to untangle it and then find the center point here. And when you're attaching the lights on this center point here, a couple things you got to watch out for. First of all, you need to have all of your lights running in the same direction across your ridge. So the lights are directional; they have an in and an out, and so you want to make sure that all your ins and outs are on the same ends of the boards. I made a mistake on them, and some of them were reversed from some of the others, and so I had to redo them. So now I'm going to use the stapler to staple the cable down to hold the light in place. You might notice there that you can see just the tips of the screws from the hinges poking through, and so what I want to do is I want to make sure that my cable is not going to lay right on top of those points so that I don't end up with a short in it. And so I'm using the stapler in order to keep the cable out of harm's way, and there I tried really hard to show you how I was stapling, and in the process of doing that I goofed because I was holding it the wrong direction, and I put a staple through my wire. And so now I'm going to grab some Flex Seal, and I'm going to spray some Flex Seal on there to hopefully get that wire to seal back up so that I don't have any issues down the road with it. So once you've got one piece on there, one light on there, you can go ahead and work your way down the strip. And so as I do this, I put one staple right next to that light, centering the stapler with my hand across the light. And so once I get down to the end, then I flip the stapler around and I come back the other direction, putting one staple on the other side of the light. So I've got one staple on each side of the light. And then I also flip the stapler around in the middle, and I do two staples in the middle. So there's four staples in between each light, two of them holding the light in place, and two of them just keeping the cable in place, so that if things shift over time, hopefully there's enough staples there to make up for the case if one or two of them come out until we can replace them. Now, one of the keys here is to make sure that there's enough slack on the hinged end in order for the board to bend. Otherwise, when if you pull it straight and aren't doing it bent like I'm doing this one here, then you might end up without enough cable to actually fold the board up. Again, a staple on each side of the light, a staple from each direction in the middle, and now we're done. So now we've got one module done. I needed a total of 9 of them for my roof. On the ends here, I'm not quite done. On the ends here, I put 3 staples on each end in order to keep the wire affixed in case, because you're going to have, that's where you got the most movement, and so you're most likely to lose a staple there. Now we're done. So that's what it looks like, folded in half.
one wire come down each side. I made it so it would fold in half to make it easier to store it. And then unfolded, we got the 10-foot length, so we got one bulb every foot, so a total of 10 bulbs on the chain. And the cables on the ends just screw together and connect to each other. And now I have a very modular system to set up on my roof, and I don't have to put any holes in my shingles in order to get it up there. And it's super simple to set it up, and shouldn't have a problem getting the lights up from now on. A little bit late this year, seeing as how it's now January. I didn't quite get the project done, but I started this project actually 3 years ago, and then got distracted with other things. So I appreciate you watching my video. Hope you enjoy it.